see what's up. Just goofing around tonight, I guess. Last weekend, believe it or not, I was just out busy doing yard work. It was a really nice weekend, and I just, by the time I realized that, oh hey, it's past 6 o'clock, you know. But tonight I am just playing around. I'm gonna take I'm building up a chunk of layers. There's 13 layers in this. I don't know if you can see it on this camera, but this is 13 layers. I already did an initial weld into one block, but I'm going to heat it up, draw it out, fold it a couple times, maybe twist it, and make a piece of material to make something out of. But the fire's just getting going. Got a lot of green coal on there. I'm sure my neighbors are absolutely loving me right about now. I'm going to step outside and see how much smoke is going in their yard. Woo! They're not going to like me. There's a big, I put a ton of green coal on and started this thing, and I looked out through the window and I was like, ooh, looks a little smoky. I went out and got a good look, and yeah, it's smoky. Let's give it some more air and get her burning a little cleaner, and then we'll get that chunk in there and heat it up. I don't really know for sure what I'm going to make with it yet. What up, Timmy? Like I said, I got this chunk. You can see the layers in it. It's a billet that I started when somebody else was here a couple weeks ago in my shop, and I'm going to go ahead and fold it a couple times, increase the layer count. It's at 13 layers right now. But I figure if I fold that 13, 1, 2, 3, 4 times 13 is going to be, well, let me get my calculator. Calculator. 4 times 13. 4 times 13 gives you 52, and then if I fold after that, another fold, that'll give me 200 layers. I don't know if I'll stop at 200 or go one more. Once you get up into really high layer counts, the pattern gets kind of muddy, and you know, the lines are so fine that it's hard to see. But basically, I'm just going to make up this billet so that I can do something else with the billet maybe next weekend. I just couldn't think of anything to do. I was sitting in the house, literally, I walked in the house. Me and my daughter did some cleaning up, and we had some furniture and stuff, some old couches and stuff on our front porch that we had to get rid of. And So we loaded a bunch of stuff in the dump trailer. They have yearly dump days where, you know, people can bring in furniture and garbage from, you know, around their yard and stuff like that. But mainly it's furniture and stuff like that. Old mattresses and whatnot, and they had a metal pile. People can bring in whatever and dispose of it. So we loaded up the trailer and the dump trailer and took that in. And then I got home and mowed my lawn, and wanted to get some wood split today, but I didn't get to it. Pretty dirty fire, but it's already welded, so now what we're doing is we're just going to compact it down. So I'm not worried about the fire being dirty right now, because I'm not making a weld right now, but by the time I get ready to make the weld, it'll probably be dirty. And but I did a stream quite a while ago where I had a really dirty fire. You know, I didn't use flux. You know, I basically did almost everything that they say you could do wrong, and the weld still took. So, you know, I mean, if you're relatively close to the right temperature, you've let it soak all the way in, so the temperature's deep, and you get it out and get it to your anvil and make your weld fast enough without losing time and letting it scale up. I think speed is the #1 factor as far as I'm concerned. But no, I will not be making a knife. I'm not sure what I'm going to make. Might be just a little trammel hook, or, you know, a little sawtooth trammel, or something that you wouldn't expect to be made out of pattern weld. So what are you up to, Tim? What are you making? Like I said, I wasn't here last week because I was just busy doing yard work and stuff like that. Finished a bunch of yard work this weekend, and I got a fence I got to tear out and put a new fence in because it's starting to collapse. But it's 40, 50 years old, according to my neighbor. He was there when he moved in 30 years ago. Steel tubing in a belt. Yeah, there you go. When I did mine, I don't know if I have one here. When I did mine, I used 2x2 square tubing, but I used a couple of the tube receivers from Harbor Freight. I mean, there's a half of one, but it's 2.5 inch outside with 1/4 inch wall, or I think these are closer to 3/16. And then my 2x2 square tube slides right in. But the receiver tubes were pretty cheap at Harbor Freight. By the time I bought, you know, like only a couple foot of it and paid for a cut, if I didn't want to buy a 22-foot long piece, by the time I bought a shorter piece and paid for a cut, it cost as much as the receiver tube, so I just went and got the receiver tubes. I've used them on a few things. Matter of fact, the other end of that piece that I just showed you, I made a receiver tube and put it on the back of my little mini excavator. So this block is pretty good size. It's going to take a hot minute to warm up here. And I may go in and use my my flatter tool. I got this flatter tool for, I don't know if you can see the shape there. This is for working under the power hammer, but I might flip it and use the other side as a fuller to make this draw out a little faster. We'll see how it works. If not, I do have a another tool that's just a piece welded onto a little handle that I can hang up, and that's just a piece of, 1-inch shaft. That way I can draw it out lengthwise faster. Okay, we're getting up there. I'm going to cut back that heat a little bit. Cut back my air a little bit. And you're going to need a lot of belts. What I found was I bought this assorted kit that had over here on this wall I've got an assortment, but I've got like 80 grit, 150 grit, 320, 400, 600, and then some blue ones which are like 1,000 and 1,500. But I got all them, and I think I've used one of each progressive one, but I've used probably 10 of the 32 grit or 36 grit coarse belts. So we're coming up the temp. Unfortunately, you're not going to see much because I'm going to be over there on the power hammer, and I didn't set the camera up. I should have set the camera up over on this side so you can see the power hammer, but it is what it is. I'm sitting there with my wife going, gee, I don't know what I'm going to make, and Alright, so we're up to temp. We got some pretty good temp all the way through. Nice soap heat there. These first couple heats are going to take a little while. You can see it's gotten longer already. I don't know if you can see the dents, but I don't want to keep it on the fire too long because it's just losing heat. That tool works all right, but I wish I would have made the handle a little longer so that it has a little flex in it, because I can kind of feel it, in the handle in my hand. This might be one of them few times where I'll actually look for a glove, put a glove on, maybe if I find one, without having to go through an active connectors. got a glove, but it's the wrong hand, so I'm going to put it on backwards. No big deal. Well, maybe it is a big deal with this glove. It's kind of tight. Yeah, that'll work. We're going to take a couple of heats and stretch this thing right out. I don't know about this backwards glove because I can barely grab it. This tool does want to jump up and down a little bit under that hammer, so the one glove may be a bad decision, might not work too well. We may end up abandoning that. And worst comes to worst, I can grab this with a set of tongs, which I might just do that. Alright, let's go do it again. One spot. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. Yeah, I'm not even going to bring it over to show you anymore because I just lose too much heat. You can see it's getting longer, but it's also getting a little bit wider, so I'm going to do some standing up and bringing it back down and whatnot. Hey, what's up, Rob? I'm just goofing off tonight. Tonight's a goof off night. And just playing around with making up a piece of pattern welded steel to make something out of. So I'm starting with 13 layers. What's that? Tonight's just a play around night? That's what you told her? Yeah, like I said, last weekend I didn't even, by the time I realized it was, you know, by the time I thought about it, it was past 6 already, and I was out doing yard work and stuff like that, so. And today I was doing yard work until about, I don't know, half an hour before the stream. I came in here real quick, light the fire up, and didn't really know what I was going to make, and I said, yeah, the heck with it. I got this billet I started. I'm going to go ahead and, you know, draw it out, layer it up, and work it down so that I can make something out of it. Maybe I'll put a twist in the whole thing. As you can see, it's good, yeah. Yeah. I never heard that. All right. So you see that heat, I narrowed it right back down and started drawing it out. She said I was mistaken. I mean, all I've got is a little homemade power hammer, you know. So, don't expect too much in one heat. It's a homemade power hammer, Rob. I mean, it's literally just made from, you know, straps. I mean, they're heavy straps, but it's pretty much just straps. That was my air compressor coming on. That was my air compressor coming on, but I don't need it, so I don't want it. I mean, it's kind of like a tire hammer, except for my tires in the back. I got a shaft coming through, and then my offset crank pin. I run a leaf spring instead of a coil spring and toggle arms. But I built that 20 years ago. One of these days I'll upgrade. Okay. Yeah, I do. My food delivery. Sounds like it's getting it done. Yeah, I mean, it beats the hell out of hand hammering. My daughter just brought me a hot dog because I was starving. I told her as soon as they're done off the grill, bring me down one. So now you guys can watch me eat. And I got big, I don't know, they're about 4-inch square flat dies in there right now. pull the next seat, I can stand out of the way off to the side. I mean, sometimes if I know I'm going to be using the power hammer, I'll usually take this camera here, the anvil cam, and I'll go put it over there on the other side so it's pointing at the power hammer. I'm going to heat this up. Bear with me, guys, I'm trying to eat. But like I said, tonight I kind of finally made it down to the shop less than half an hour before the stream, trying to decide what I was going to do. So I didn't have a lot of time to move the camera over, and when I do that, I got to take the cord and run it behind my cords over to that side. Alright, draw out one end a little bit. Alright, so you see that heat, you know, I got some work done. You can see where I drew it down. But I was able to, most of that came right initially as I fed it in, because I'm feeding it in, and I'm only feeding it in a little bit and just using the one side of the hammer die. As I'm feeding it in, I got them coming together. I'm only hitting that much, and I'll feed in a little more and hit, so that I'm keeping the amount that I'm hitting small. I don't know if you guys can see it, because I kind of stood off to the side, so hopefully you can see some of it. Now I'll heat up in behind it and bring down some more. Like I said, I mean, there's no way in any world I would draw that by hand that fast. So I can't really complain. One of my hooks, I got hooks all the way around for hanging up tools and stuff, and one of my hooks fell out, so I'll have to, what I found is when they fall out, I just put some silicone on them and push them back in. Silicone holds them in. Yeah, feed the baby, huh? That the official Brazil nut term for, you know, inching it in instead of trying to just throw the whole thing under the die and smush 4 inches wide all at once. I mean, I really should have Yeah, same concept of the anvil. I mean, it really should have like a combo die or something in there. I've got them. I've been using flat dies for so long, and then just grabbing, you know, like that. That's my basic top fuller, which is just a 1-inch pin, and I just. Or this is a fuller flatter, but I've used it that way as a flatter, and I flipped it over and used it like that, a fuller too. So. That particular one somebody else made, and I have no idea what material it is. Oh, Clifton Ralph. Yeah, I remember years ago sitting down, and our club had a video library where, you know, you could basically, you paid the postage and you gave them a $5 deposit or something. They would send you a video, and then when you got it done, you'd mail it back to them. And I sent them like $100 and said, just, you know, let me know when it runs up, and just kept renting one video after another. But one of them I got was Clifton Ralph, had a Power Hammer series. And it was like 4 8-hour tapes. It was like 32 hours long of, you know, just on using the Power Hammer. It was pretty good watch. Alright, let me take it out. Feed a little more into the baby, I guess. That's the term. Whoa, I'm getting ready to lose this handle. So we have to find a pair of tongs that fits halfway. Maybe I can get one more heat out of it before I lose it. I stopped that one kind of early, which I shouldn't have done. But yeah, I don't think I can get all the way back to the handle in this one heat, which is now 2 because the handle started feeling a little wiggly. Okay, the 250 in that video, yeah, because he had like a 250 Little Giant with like, he modified it, put a brake band on it or something like that. It was years ago that I saw that video, but I do remember it was like 32 hours long, and I sat there and watched it all. And when I went and did my my first demo that I ever did for the club, you know, I walked in and I'm like, oh yeah, you know, and I was like, kept telling everybody, hey, take advantage of this resource. These videos are great. You know, not just that one. There was, you know, Francis Whitaker and Ashokin, and, you know, just Herschel House. I mean, I can't even remember all the names. And this hammer kind of lacks the fine control, but you can see it's, you know, not too terribly bad. Like I said, I'm getting ready to lose this handle. Probably this next heat, because it's heated, I'm going to have to heat that last little chunk up next to the handle. The handle will get hot. start wiggling back and forth. Well, I think I'm probably gonna put a pair of tongs over there right in reach, because I'll probably have to pick that up this time. Alright, while that's eating, I'm gonna eat my other hot dog. Yeah, I mean, I watched that, Herschel House, trying to think of some of the other videos. God, it's been so many years. Pete Ross, I watched a few Pete Ross videos. I even watched a couple of Mike videos, even though I never wanted to make a knife. No, we're not making a sword. That's one thing that I've never had any desire to do knives or swords. I shouldn't say that. I did make a short little gladius one time. This would be a good time to have one of them little induction forges. And to be honest with you, Rob, I've actually been kind of looking and seriously considering buying one of them little 25 kg, 25 kilogram, they're basically the same as the An Yang 25 kilogram hammers. But I don't know if I got enough good years left in me to use it. And I don't usually wear gloves very often when I'm blacksmithing at all, but sometimes I do on the power hammer. It takes some of the shock out of it. I might have enough heat there. Yeah, I'm going to break that off now so I can flip it right around, but you can see I'm drawing it out. Might as well break it off now because it's gonna, and I don't want it to do it unexpectedly. Alright. Let me put that very end in and we'll do a little bit there. 1.5 inch pretty reliably, and mine on a 2-inch coil. Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's one. What do you think the max is? 1.5 is like the total, you know, capacity, and what do you got? Like a 15 kW or whatever? Yeah, 15. You know, I saw one, it was brand new in the box for sale locally. I should have bought it, but it was just the unit, it didn't have the cooler with it. But all right, let me flatten that out a little more. Alright, I think I got it to where now I'm going to do a little touch-up work. I'm just going to do that with a hand hammer. Just getting it straight, knocking a couple little humps out. Alright, so now I got that drawn out. And there's 13 layers there. What I'll do now is let it cool down a little bit. And here's how I do them. I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent. I take and measure my length. And I've got about 17 inches there. So half of 17 is going to be 8.5. No, half of 18 is 9, so yeah, 8.5. I'll put a line on my anvil right there. And then half of 8.5 would be 4.25. I'll put another line there. Take a junk hammer and Steve Mankowski puts a dent with his hot cut in the side because he says it's easier to see. I found that sometimes the center punch mark is hard to see, so a lot of times I put 2. I put 2 there in the center. I'm going to take my soapstone and just mark this. Line it up with that. Give myself a mark here. But I've had times when I heated it up and I got it hot, my eyes aren't that good. And it's like I can't find that single mark. But if I put 2 or 3 there, usually I can find it pretty good later on. And when I'm doing Damascus, if these aren't, or well, I won't say Damascus because there's so many idiots that'll be like, it's not true Damascus. Damascus was Woots and wrought iron and Woots steel and blah blah blah. So when I'm doing pattern welded steel, now I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I usually end up trimming the end off anyway, so I don't worry about if these line up perfectly. But you can see I put my 2 dimples on that side and that side, but the center one is on the other side. And then I'm going to take an angle grinder and I'm going to go in real quick and just clean off some of the scale before I move on, because I'm going to nick it with the hot cut and then fold it. Plug it in. It won't work if I don't plug it in. There's another grinder plugged into it right now. Sometimes I'll hit that with just a wire brush too, but a lot of people say that if you hit it with a wire brush, it just kind of shines up the scale but doesn't remove it. I'm not even getting all of it off, just getting most of it. Flip it, do the same thing on the other side. And no, it's not traditional, you know, your traditional Smiths will be Then you see some of the traditional guys like Steve Mankowski where this works nice and smooth and everything, and it's like, I said something to him about, you know, are you using a butcher block brush or whatnot? And he's like, oh, well, that wasn't traditional, so he doesn't. But his work still comes out really smooth. I can't understand it. And he works at really, really high temps all the time. Alright, now we'll heat that up. We'll pop a cutter in there. Shiny scale is pretty. Yeah, well. This will be pretty interesting because by the time I get to where I'm ready to make this next weld, I'm going to have a pretty dirty fire because this coal sucks. So it'll be interesting to see. Pioneer 4 I am not following whatever you're fucking saying, Rob. Oops, I accidentally dropped the F-bomb. Traditional, what time frame are we talking about? I hate that term. Well, I mean, those guys are, when I say traditional, and I'm talking about like Steve Mankowski, Peter Ross, Ken Schwartz, the Colonial Williamsburg crew there. You know, you're looking at colonial time period, so you're looking at the 1700s. And, oh yeah, I get it. So, the pioneer era, but, you know, a lot of that was utilitarian as opposed to artistic. You know, we didn't have big fancy castles and all that here. Oh, alright. So I'll bring this up to temp, I'll put it on there, and I'm going to cut about 3/4 of the way through. But I'm going to cut there, and then I'm going to heat the next line, and I'm going to flip it and cut down that way so that I can fold it like that. Yeah, I mean, I suppose if you got real traditional, you could go back and bang on a rock. I mean, I guess. Like I said, I'm getting to the point where my fire is starting to get a little clinker in there, but by the time I get this heated up and folded over, and I get ready to make that weld, I'm going to have a pretty dirty fire. So you can see I got a notch in there quite a ways down. Before I move to the next one, I'll make sure this is all nice and straight. It's also critical to try to get that as close to square across the bar as you can. Otherwise, when you fold it, they're going to go And for me, they always do because I never get it quite perfectly square, but now I'll heat up, do the middle one. And to be honest with you guys, a lot of times I'll smash these down and I'll work multiple billets. And I'll do 3 or 4 billets at a time and just keep pulling them out, going over there. And I'll let them billets cool down. I'll mark where all my notches need to be, and a lot of times I'll just take the torch with a rosebud and heat just that area, notch it, next. It doesn't build up as much scale in between. It just ends up being a better, cleaner way to do it, and it's faster. Did dudes in the 1700s dress up like dudes from the 1200s? Hold on, I gotta go back. You were no real contact. So ironwork has been around for thousands of years. I think. Do you
think the 1600 thumb there knows that other Smith's not forging like it's 1400.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're overthinking it, Rob. You know, and there's also the other argument that, you know, like when it comes to welders and stuff like that, where, you know, they say, look, if they would have had the technology back in the 1800s, they would have used it. So, there we go. You see, there's the second one, and we'll do the third one. I've always done this. 4 has always just seemed to be a good number for me. As far as how many folds I'm going to do at once. Because, you know, I've watched other guys where they do it and just fold once and half, and then draw that out, fold it once and a half, draw that out. The more folds you can put in one shot, the, you know, the more layers you're going to build up in the same amount of work. So, years ago I did a demonstration on just this. The demonstration was making ladder pattern Damascus. This was back around, I want to say 2004, 2003, somewhere around there. And the internet wasn't anywhere near as resourceful as it is nowadays. So you had to really look to find people and ask them questions, and everything wasn't just right there for you to go to like it is nowadays. And I was a young smith in the group, and you know, when I joined my group, the New York State Designer Blacksmiths, most of the guys in the group were like old retired guys, and I was the young 20-year-old kid at that time, just looking to do it as a hobby. But I also found, you know, I liked making the pattern welded and whatnot. I didn't have as much hammer time as some of the other smiths, but we go a little deeper there. Alright, so now I got 2 notches on this side and 1 notch on that side. I'll heat it back up and start folding. I'll hit it quick with a brush in between folds. But anyway, I was a young guy, you know, and looking all this stuff up and talking to people, and you know. And so I really liked doing the Damascus, or pattern welded steel. So I was doing quite a bit of it, you know, simple ladder patterns and raindrops, and you know, some twists, some stacked up, you know, reverse twists and whatnot. And so I got invited to do a demonstration once up in a couple hours north of where I live. Hammer, hammer, hammer. Now you can see that overlapped that mark because I purposely know that right there, when I laid it on the anvil and I measured to the center, I knew I was going to have to cut off the end because there's a couple of welds there, arc welds, from when I started the billet. But anyway, back to the story. I was this young kid and I walked in and we started cutting out. They called me and asked me if I wanted to be a demonstrator, and I'm like, sure, I'll come up and demonstrate. And so I get there, and one of the other guys, while we're cutting out the pieces of 15N20 and 1084, one of the other guys grabs one of the stacked up billets, runs right over, throws it in the forge, doesn't even wait for the demo. He draws it out. There was a big blue 110 power hammer. So he draws it right out nice and long and does a single fold. You know, he's trying to weld a good 10-inch long sectional in one heat, or you know, in one go. And he can't get it to weld down at the end because by the time he got there, it had built up a lot of scale and stuff in it. So I'm like, hey, you want me to try? He's like, sure. So I opened it up, cleaned it out just a little bit with a screwdriver, you know, just knocked some of the scale off, put it back in, fluxed it, brought it back out, hit it a couple times, handed it back to him. I said, it's welded now. You want to watch the demo and I'll show you how to do it? But, you know, some people just, I don't know. Alright, I want to get a little bit more heat, a little farther back than where I've got it heated because I want to heat from one all the way over to the next one that bends in the same direction so that I can clean both the surfaces that are going to fold together. And that's nice because it just blows all that scale right out of there. Now you can see, and I'm lining up, and like I said, I'm not worried about that part that's hanging over. I'm going to cut that off anyway because it's got weld in it. It's foreign material. Now I'll heat it up, kind of give it a quick brush to slam some of the scale out, make the last fold, and then I could probably use the piece that's there as a handle that's sticking out, that little nub. If not, I'll have a nub on the other end. I can use either one. So I won't have to get a massive, huge pair of tongs to do it. Put my hammer down, grab my thing, have it ready. Yeah, and Rob, I kind of have a differing opinion when it comes to welding than a lot of people. And mine is just, if you got it close to the right temp and you go fast enough, it'll weld. I think for me, from my experience, the biggest variables is speed and heat, and not so much cleanliness. I'd pull the, you know, I've done it on a live stream before, pulled a piece out of a dirty fire that had huge clinkers in it and welded it. So they didn't line up perfect, but that's okay. You're always going to cut the ends off and throw them away. Let me get that in there. Take that clinker up. Dragging fresh coal on it. It's full of sulfur and everything else. Everybody says that'll kill your weld. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I had my way, I'd weld nothing but wrought iron all the time because it's great. Sometimes I do it with flux, sometimes I don't. It really depends on my mood more than anything else. Because my fire is so dirty, I'm just going to use a little bit of flux. My flux spoons all have long handles. I like the flux in the fire. And probably one of the reasons that I like the flux in the fire is once you pull it out and it hits oxygen, it starts forming scale. So if you pull it out to put a bunch of borax on there, you're making scale the same time you're putting the borax on there, which is supposed to help clean the scale. And I'm not gonna, you know, that was one spoon. I'm gonna give it a flip. I'm gonna give it a spoon on the other side, and that'll be it. I'm not dousing this thing in massive amounts of flux. And then when I'm welding, my hammer's already in my hand before I even pull that piece out of the fire. I'm not wasting time, I'm not coming over, I'm not setting it down and reaching for my hammer. It's already in my hand. It's speed. I'm going to pull it out, I'm going to come out. Weld that end. Flip it around, go back in and do the other end. And I'm going to weld that better after I get it stuck initially. Me and this old guy used to blacksmith with. We used to blacksmith at Erie Canal Museum. And one day we were playing around and we took some old wrought iron pieces and we were welding them together. And they were probably, I don't know, 1.5 inch diameter. We went to weld these two pieces together of wrought iron, and we pulled them out. He set his piece on, I set my piece on, and before I even hit it, I was like, oh, they're misaligned. And I went to pull it back, and they were welded together. We're both yanking on it, twisting it. Never even hit it with the hammer. Just dropping one on top of the other, they welded. If they were in the right position, it would have been great. All right. I'm going to go right back in for a second heat because that's had time to scale up on me. And usually at this point, I'll usually cut the ends off and weld the new handle on with the arc welder. Not gonna lie, I use an arc welder a lot. No, I got a little separation there. Let's try putting a little flux in there and give it one more go. The other side welded down. I'll roll right up here. Yeah, and over the years I've tried a lot of different fluxes. Swan Magic Weld, Iron Mountain, Anti-Borax. I've got actually a lot of different fluxes here. Lots of times I just use regular old borax. Okay, that's not welding, so what I'm going to do, before I go any farther, is I'm opening it right up. Trying to get that flux right down in there. And I wish you guys could see how dirty this fire is. I think I have about an inch of nice coal above the clinker. Like I said, this coal absolutely sucks, but I'll just keep using it. When it's gone, I'll be happy to go back to the other stuff. But since I had one that was really difficult, I'm going to drop back on my arrow a little bit. Heat it up a little slower. All right, good. I just now looked to see if I had any drop frames, and I have 0.1%. So I'm guessing that that's pretty good. And sometimes, you know, if you give it 3-4 times and it don't weld, you're going to have to open that back up, clean it good, close it back up. And the one end's already probably welded together, so I'd have to chisel that to get it open up. Like I said, I cut back my air and I'm taking my time bringing up the heat slower. And like I said, if this doesn't work, I'll have to open it up and do all that, and I'll probably just end the stream and finish it some other time. Because there's nothing worse than when you just keep messing up over and over on a live stream, because then you start to get all anxious and nothing goes right, and then you just okay. And that's stuck. All right, so that's stuck. Let's go back in. I'm going to actually hit both ends a little bit better and then go back to the power hammer. And right now I should be at what did I say, 13 times 4, 53 layers. Yeah, I did not stick a weld. I mean, I just did. I opened it up, cleaned it out, and put a little flux down in there. But, yeah, and Alexis could tell you. I think Alexis was watching that one day when I did a weld and I did everything I could wrong and welded it. I mean, I had a dirty fire. I don't think I used flux that day. I didn't grind the scale off. You know, like I said, I purposely did everything wrong and just made sure I came out at the right temp, really hot, and hit it fast before it lost any heat, and it welded. Yeah, once in a while I make a weld, they don't. Yeah, I burned a horseshoe first. So you can see, it's welded, like I said. I am not going to wait for it to cool down so you can see it really good. I don't want to lose all my heat. I'm going to flip it around, hit that other end together really good, and then just go straight over to the power hammer and just start hammering hard. Well, no, I couldn't wait till it cools to a black heat. Like I said, I think the whole point when I did that forge weld was how many variables I had wrong, but I just came out at the right temp and went fast. And like I said, here I'm actually to the point where I would weld another piece of rebar on for a handle, so I don't have to deal with it with tongs and the power hammer. But it is what it is. And I might just draw this one out and leave it and finish, do one more fold at a later time. when I decide what I'm going to make with it, because I'm probably going to fold it one more time. That'll get me up into the, just over 200, 212 layers. And then square it all up and twist the whole thing. And when I decide what I'm going to make with it, that may determine, like I may split it in half and do 2 twists in opposite directions and then weld them 2 together, or do 4 in opposite directions. I don't know. I mean, a lot of times I just start playing around and whatever happens, happens. I'm not very regimented. But I literally, back in the 2000s, I would come home and, I'd get off work and I'd fire up my forge for fun, at least probably 3 times a week during the week. And then on the weekends, I'd be playing around or going to blacksmith meetings. So I was actually a lot better then than I am now. Maybe I'm still about the same. But I definitely don't forge. Lately, coming out here and doing these live streams is the most forging I've been doing. Other than I had a guy here and we worked on making, he started making a billet, his billet is right here. And I'm leaving it there just as it is until he comes back to finish it. Or about 6 months, whichever comes first. If you don't come back in 6 months, I might grab it and make it into something. All right. I'm liking that. I'm going to heat it up real good, and we'll go to the hammer. I feel pretty good about them wires that they're welded together. And the other thing is too, the thicker you leave them layers, the harder it is to get them to weld. Because it's hard to get the hammer forced to go all the way through a thick bar to the center where it's actually welding. Not saying you can't do it, I'm just saying it's hard. You go to stack up a bunch of little thin ones and they weld easily. Thought I smelled some plastic burning. There's a plastic bag with bottles and cans sitting there that just caught on fire. Whoa! It's a blacksmith shop and there's not much flammable stuff around for it. If it did burn for a while, but it's just starting to stink. I can smell it. All right. All right. And my first couple heats in the power hammer, I'm not going to go all out. I'm going to be hitting it pretty gentle, making sure all them wires get welded together nice. And I'm going to keep it up near welding heat. But I figure I mean, I don't really need to, yeah, I guess I don't really need to draw it out and fold it over, because I'm going to do a twist, and if I just twist tighter, that'll give me more layers. Alright, you can see, like I said, I didn't go hog wild. I just brought it down, you know, maybe a little under 1/4 of an inch. Alright, now, even though I'm not making a weld right now, it's already welded. I'm going to pull that piece out for a second, set it off to the side, and I'm going to clean some of the clinker out. Otherwise, it just makes it real slow to come off this temp. And there's nothing I hate more than when I'm doing a live stream and I'm waiting forever just for it to come up. So, I'll scoop a bunch of coals out. Okay, I scooped almost all my good coal out down to my layer where it's clinker. That's a clinker. And there's probably half, maybe 1/4 or 1/3 of that still. Most of that's clinker. The important thing is, if you pull your fire apart to clean it, don't get too hung up on getting all of it out. Just pull it apart, get it clean, and get it back, and get the air back on it before it goes out. But I just did that well, and you guys saw how much clinker was in there. Now I'll build the fire back up, and I don't know. Maybe I'll just hammer this down to square, draw it out, and then start doing a twist, or maybe a couple different twists. Like I said, I don't need a real high layer count, because when I twist, I just twist it tighter, and that's going to give me more layers. And depending on what you make, if you got a real high layer count, and then you make a small item, you know, the layers get hard to see. And like I said, whatever I decide we're going to make with this, I'll probably make in the next stream. Let me turn that off for a couple few. Out of your comfort zone with smithing. Yeah, you know, and I think that's kind of my problem too, is I haven't been. You know, I mean, my last big project that pushed me out of my comfort zone was, you know, my candelabra, and even that really didn't push me out of my comfort zone. I was in my comfort zone, you know, because the smithing part of it was real easy. It was just redundancy, doing a lot of it over and over and over, and packing it in to such a small area that it looked fancier than what it was.
Found a fire extinguisher. Wow.
Sounds like my shop. If I turn these cameras around and point it back on that side, if you think this side is messy, oh man, that side's horrible. I've got so much stuff in here that just doesn't even belong in this shop. It belongs up in my garage. Right now over here on the, beside me on the floor here, because I did a bunch of cleaning and stuff over here in the vise, I literally have 3 angle grinders laying there on the floor that need to go up on. I've got racks for them, nice hangers. They're on the floor. Alright, I'm going to put this back on top of the fire. The fire hasn't come up yet, but it'll keep it from getting too cold. And seeing as how, you know, I'm waiting on that. There's one. You don't want to put this one up there. There's one. There's one. If I ever clean this shop, it'd be amazing. I'd probably be able to get some stuff done. Oh yeah, for those that don't know, when I do my pattern welded stuff, we have a machine at work, and it runs, these are flat springs. They're about 3 inches wide, in between a 1/16 and an 1/8 thick, and they're 1080 steel. So I'll take these and clean off that powder coated paint, and I'll use that, and I use it's a pretty big saw blade for my 15 and 20. Let's see if I can get one down here. Here's a chunk of one. And I'll cut this into 3-inch strips to match my other piece, but those are the saw blades I'm using. And this is a short chunk. Normally I get them, they're 3 foot long or so, the guy that I get them from. But when they start out, they're like 40 feet long. Alright. Let's get this rope down a little bit and get it down into the fire. Start actually warming it up. Once some of that green stuff burns off, right now you can't see anything because there's so much flame on the top of that, because I just added a massive amount of fresh coal. My neighbors are probably hating me right now, probably smoking out their whole house. One of these days when I actually clean my shop, I'll figure out, you may have to just do it on a cell phone, on a Facebook Live or something, and go right around the shop, you know, because I've got a homemade 2x72, I got this is an old Craftsman grinder, I think, that's got like 12-inch wire wheels on it. There's a little press over here that I really rarely ever use. That has a one of them little 20-ton air-over hydraulic jacks on it. I mean, I do use it once in a blue moon, but half the time the stuff I use it on, I'm just using it on cold stuff. One of these days I'll play around with this piece of copper. I gotta be able to make something fun with that. It is about 1 inch diameter. What I found with copper is that you want to take it up, and as soon as you can see color, forge it. Don't wait for orange or, you know, just as soon as you see color. Get right into it. Oh, and this is why I hate cleaning my fire in the middle of a live stream, because then you got to wait for your fire to heat back up, and sometimes it's takes almost as long as if you just restarted the fire over from scratch. My wife works at a candle company, coincidentally. My wife works at a candle company, and so she brought home boxes of candle wick. These are just, you know, the trimmings from the machines. And this machine jams up and they have to cut it, or the end of the roll, or whatever. And that stuff works incredible for lighting a torch. All right, we're getting there. We're getting there. She's coming up to temp. I'll probably come out, because this is the other end, and come out and do one heat quick. Only because I see a little bit of color difference between them, and it makes me think that part of it might not be welded good. So I'll come out, take one heat right here, and then put it back in, and then head over to the power hammer on the next one. But I'm not going to show you because I don't want to lose heat in between. And my camera equipment these are little, you know, $40 or whatever webcams. They're not anything fancy at all. Give it. Alright, now we'll heat it up and go over there. Next heat, we'll head to the hammer. And I'm just making sure everything's welded and all the layers are welded good. So I'm going to come out and I'm going to take it easy. I'm not going to start feeding the baby and chomping off little pieces until after I know everything's welded good. I look today, and my hammer dies are actually starting to get rust on them. So when you're flattening that out on your dies and it starts to go into a rhombus on you, and you got to tip it up and hit on the corner, if you don't have them welded, that's when it'll let you know. It'll shear them right apart. What's up, Jeff? Right now I'm just playing around and welding up some stacks of layers to make a just a chunk of pattern welded steel that I have no idea what I'm going to make out of it yet, but it will probably be something that you normally wouldn't see made out of pattern welded steel. It won't be a knife. That I can promise you. Alright, so that welded pretty good, and like I said, when I stood it up and it started to go rhombus and I stand it up kind of at an angle to try to push it back and square it up, it did not shear. And those layers that welded didn't slip. If it wasn't welded, that's definitely when it will do it. So now that I know it's welded and it's welded well, I'll go in and feed the baby. I'll start pinching off a little bit, then feed it in a little, pinch off a little bit, feed it in a little, pinch off a little bit, and bring it down probably to ½ inch. All right. Alright, now you can see it's starting to draw out. And I'm just stepping it down to like ½ inch. I don't want to go too far because I'm going to stand this up and square it. If I make it too thin and too wide, then when I stand it up it's going to fold, and I don't want that to happen. The question is though, do I want to cut off the little bit of unevenness where when I folded they didn't line up perfect before I square it off, so that I don't end up with a stress riser in there that starts a D-lam. But seeing as how I'm doing a live stream, I'll go ahead and we'll start bringing it down to square. So you'll see I'll stand it up, hit it a couple times. I really wish, as much power hammer work as I'm doing tonight, I really wish I would have took the anvil cam and moved it over there so you guys can see better. But like I said, I literally had no idea what I was doing tonight. I came out. As I was lighting the fire, I looked over, saw this billet I had started, and said, we'll work on that. It was either that or I was going to make a few more soapstone holders for some millwrights at work. Alright, so you can see now I'm taking it down, and I'm taking it down this way so that I'm getting more rectangular, we're headed for square. Once I get it squared, I think I'm going to let this cool off, probably call it a night, and then I'll take it and put it in the bandsaw and trim off the rag edges before I twist it, and then I'll probably twist it, and depending on how much material's there, I'll twist it. Maybe I'll do just 4 bars, you know, 2 twisted right, 2 twisted left, stack them up, weld them together, and then make something out of the billet. I usually have a little razor knife down here, I'm not seeing it. Anyway, not important. We'll go ahead and square this up, and then, like I said, once I get it squared up, I'll probably cut the 2 ends off. That way I don't have any stress risers in the ends that are going to start D-limbs. And then I'll put the kiss blocks in my hammer next time and take it down to an even 1/2 inch the whole length or something. I hate dirty fire, but it's dirty again already. Like I said, this coal's horrible. Take it forever to get a heat on it. I don't even have a real good heat. Alright, so now I've got it. It's probably 3/4 inch, pretty close to square. I'll flip ends, heat up that end, do the same thing, make that square. And I'm just reluctant to go all the way to the finished size the way it is because of where the ends come together. You do actually have a little 2 parts coming in. No matter what, you're always going to get a little cold shut in there, and that cold shut's going to lead to a stress riser, which is going to delam that layer. Done with the 12. And I suppose that if I wanted to, I could put the hot cut in there and hot cut that end right off. But like I said, I think I'm going to do that, and then next time I'll put a kiss block in there, and we'll take it right down to the 1/2 inch size and put the twist in it. You can twist 3/4. It's just the difference between twisting 1/2 and twisting 3/4 is unbelievable. 1/2 is easy, 3/4 is a struggle. 1 inch is a pain, really. Here in my shop with a vise that's not bolted right down good. you know, and a lot of it's just knowing the limitations of the equipment that I have and the way I've got it set up. Just like my anvil's not bolted down or anything, I mean. But you guys have seen me when I work with my anvil. If I want this round side, I'll spin it right around if I want it over on the far side. If I want this sharper side, I'll, you know, move my anvil all over the place. Alright, let me take a real good heat, get her up close to welding heat, and then we'll pull it out and go over there and start squaring that section up. Alright, you can see we're partway there. Probably one more heat and that'll be roughly 3/4 inch square all the way down. And then, like I said, I'll probably end the stream, put it in the bandsaw, start up next time. We'll draw it out, we'll put the kiss block in the hammer, draw it down till it's like 1/2 inch square. Clamp it in the vise, maybe twist half one way, half the other way. Then re-square it up after we twist it. You know, I mean, having the power hammer, it's a lot less work than doing it by hand. But I've also done it, I've done billets like this size in like a really good power hammer where I could draw the whole thing out, you know, down to 1/4 or 3/16 thick, this long and, you know, that wide in one heat or 2 heats. But it is what it is. That is pretty close to being nice and even. Give it some straightening. I'm going to go a little bit more down on that end. Should still have enough heat for what I'm doing. That looks better. Alright, once this cools down a little bit, I'll show you exactly why I didn't want to do this. Well, it's not the end of the world right now because I caught it. Alright, we're going to kill that fire, let this cool down for a minute so you can see it, and I'll show you exactly what I was talking about. And where that piece came over and folded over, but they didn't line up perfectly end to end when I did my folds. Find my little pointer. And you can see, okay, right there. And that probably has enough scale and stuff into it that you'll never get it to weld back in. But let's keep in mind that if that was the end, although I think that wasn't the end, I think this was the end that had the weld in the end of the bar, and that wasn't. But, you know, your layers are going to be running, and then they're going to get bigger in that, and this one's going to be the same size. So I'll just come in just past it, maybe 1/4 of an inch past it if that, and just cut that little chunk right off. But that's why I was talking about, I'll cool it off, cut the end up before I go too far, because where it folds over, it's always going to create a shoulder, or a cold shut. If I wanted to get rid of it, yes, you can go back and you can pound the ends square before you weld it together and whatnot. But it's so much, while you're doing that, you're building more scale, it's getting dirtier, it doesn't, you know, and you got to make your weld. So I just fold them over and don't care, just cut 1/2 inch. In this case, yeah, in this case still about 1/2 inch off that end. The other end, you can see where those two tails were longer and the other bar folds right there, and you got a little spot in that, so that'll get cut off too. Once those two are cut off, I just can't put it in the saw right now because it's too hot, and if I quench it, it's going to harden up. So 8 o'clock. It's not that late. It's not that late, it's just that I'd have to wait to cut them out. And I'd have to work back there at the hammer quite a bit, and you guys aren't going to see anything because the camera's over here. So I'm probably better off waiting until next week to take this down to 1/2 inch square and put my twist in it. Like I said, I'll probably twist half of the bar one way, the other half of the bar the other way, and then, you know, my clockwise twist, cut that in half so that I have 2 clockwise, 2 counterclockwise. Then put a clockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise, weld them together, and then make something out of the billet. Which I may make a spatula, believe it or not, and just make a spatula and go back and do file work on it and stuff, and then clean the handle up nice. You know, like here's one that I was playing around with. But then when I get done cleaning it up, etch the whole thing, and it's going to be, you know, pattern welded. That might be pretty cool. I mean, everybody makes knives, but why not a spatula? And I'm not kidding when I say I've actually made a Trammel hook that was almost, you know, 2.5 to 3 foot long, you know, when it was closed, and extended out to, yeah, I want to say maybe it was 2 and extends out to like 4. Years ago I made one out of pattern welded steel. And my local New York State blacksmithing club, New York State Designer Blacksmiths, the Trammell hook goes to like all our all-state meetings and stuff. They do a blacksmith stew, and they get out a big cauldron. They cook it out, you know, set up a tripod and hang it with the Trammell hook. So they use the Trammell hook to keep moving it up. Yeah, yeah. A tactical attack spatula, sure. If that's what we want to call it. But, you know, hey, why not? I mean, yeah, and you know what? If I'm going for a spatula, I may decide rather than cutting it all apart, just cut the two ends off, round this thing up, basically the size, twist it the size it is, then take it down to make like a 1/4 by 1, and then I'll be ready to just start making a spatula like I would out of a normal piece of 1/4 by 1. Or I can take it down to, you know, leave it a little bit wider so that I can put a little bit bigger spatula end on it. I mean, this one, I do have a lot of meat left in this. I could have gone a lot thicker, or a lot thinner, and went wider. But I think I just did this on a live stream, goofing around one night. I think it'd look pretty cool if I did that, and I did it in pattern welded. Wouldn't be traditional, but like Rob said, it's traditional 21st century cookware. Hand forged. But yeah, I think I'm going to call it. That way when I go back to do to finish making that billet, maybe next week we'll finish making the billet, and then I'll let it cool and I'll go in and clean it all up and everything before I start actually making the spatula. Maybe I'll figure out some small project to do, because that's not going to take that long if I just twist this now and then take it down to a 1/4 by 1. And yeah, traditional plus. But yeah, like I said, I think I don't make knives. I'm not going to make a knife out of it. I mean, some of these guys have seen, I've made Trammell hooks, I've made picture frames, I've done, you know, just a lot of stuff that you wouldn't expect to be made out of pattern welded steel. But like I said, I'm gonna, because I do want to let this cool down. I want to let it cool down, and I want to cut out basically the cold shuts that developed on the ends, because the ends weren't all perfectly even, which I knew was going to happen. I mean, I told you guys all along that it was going to happen, and that's why I cut the ends off and don't worry about it. I don't know if you saw it, Rob, but right in the very ends, if you remember on this one end, the two ends didn't line up perfect above each other, and I didn't care, but I knew it was going to create a cold shut in there. So I got to cut that out and then round all this up before I twist it, because I'll actually make this round, twist it, and then probably hammer it out to maybe a 1/4 by 1-ish, 1/4 by 1.5. A little extra width doesn't bother me at all, because that gives me a little more I can always just leave more material for the spatula to make it longer, but to get more width out of it, it's nice if I start with a little bit wider than 1/4 by 1, because I think I used 1/4 by 1 on that one. But here's another one I started, but I got it too thin in the center, and then when I started drawing out, this got longer, and I just didn't have any material to push out here, so I didn't bother finishing it. This one I kind of finished, and you know, if you look at the old ones, you'll see a lot of them, these spatulas aren't very big on the one-piece ones. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna call it and let this cool down, trim the ends off. Yeah, like I said, I could cut it with a hot cut, but I mean, but at the same time, I don't have one that cuts square. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, they all cut like this. I've seen them before where guys make them so they taper up the one side, the other side's straight. You can put it in there, this side's perfectly straight, and then it tips off that way. And you can cut and have the end of your bar pretty square. Or you can just square it up, I know, but. Or I've got a bandsaw. I'll put it right in the bandsaw once it cools down and finish it some other night. Like I said, I'm tired. I've been out there all day working around my yard, doing whatnot. So, I will talk to you guys later. And thanks everybody that showed up for showing up. Because one of these days I'm going to get on and nobody's going to show up, and when that happens I probably won't ever do another stream. Alright, I'm out.